So, Chapter 1, entitled Matter and Change. Chapter 1 is pretty much a broad overview of what we'll be studying this year in chemistry. There's going to be a number of vocabulary words to learn. We're going to learn basics about chemistry equations, a little bit about the periodic table. All of these concepts and topics that we talk about in this chapter will go more in depth as we go throughout the entire year in chemistry. So first, what is chemistry? Well, if you look at any definition of chemistry, they're going to include 4 points. And this is the definition that's pretty much straight out of our textbook. And you'll see in a lot of textbooks that chemistry is a study of the composition, structure, and properties of matter and the changes that they undergo. So when we talk about composition, we're trying to determine what something is made of. You know, what is water made of? Well, hopefully you know by now, just by living on this planet for so many years, that the composition of water is 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. It's H2O. The composition of sugar is C12H22O11. That means we have 12 carbon atoms, 22 hydrogen atoms, and 11 oxygen atoms. Everything that you've ever seen, that you've ever come into contact with, is composed of atoms and different elements. And so what we're going to do throughout the year is study the composition of things. What are they made of? The structure is going to tell us how those atoms are put together. The shapes of molecules. We're going to learn throughout the year there are linear molecules, there are bent, there are tetrahedral molecules, there are things called trigonal biplanar. And the structure of the molecule can determine things like its melting point and its boiling point and how they interact and react with other molecules. Properties of matter, those are going to be points of, as I just mentioned, boiling point, melting point, the color. You know, why are certain things the color they are? It could be density. And we'll do a lot of labs throughout the year where we study the properties of matter. And the changes. Changes are the fun part of chemistry. Changes are the reactions. Changes are when we take 2 reactants and we combine them and they undergo a reaction to turn into something else, to change their structure, to change their composition. And a lot of the things that we use on a daily basis are all represented in these 4 areas: composition, structure, properties, and changes. And we'll talk more about these throughout the year. There are many different types of chemistry. This year's course is a broad overview of chemistry, of general chemistry. If chemistry is something you're really interested in and you get out of Homestead, out of high school, and you think, boy, I really like to study chemistry in college, then you start taking specific types of chemistry courses. But for now, we're just going to do a broad overview. So I'm going to go over these types of chemistry and explain a little bit about each one where you'll see them. The first type that we have here is something called analytical chemistry. And in the word analytical, you can probably see the word analyze. And so we're studying what things are made of. You know, what is the composition of the substances? And a great majority of our labs will fall into this category of analytical chemistry. If you ever watch those CSI shows on TV, the crime scene shows, all the lab stuff that they do in those shows are analytical in nature. They're trying to determine what something is, what an unknown substance is. Another type is inorganic chemistry, and actually I'm going to put up organic here as well. Basically, if a chemical compound contains carbon, it's considered to be organic. An organic substance is something that comes from a living being or plant. Sugar, which I mentioned earlier, sucrose, C12H22O11. Sugar contains carbon. Sugar comes from a plant, comes from sugarcane, something that once was living. Inorganic compounds do not contain carbon. To compare that with sugar, we use salt. Table salt is sodium chloride, has sodium and chloride. And salt comes from minerals mined in the earth. They do not come from living substances. Okay, so those are the difference. We'll do a lot of inorganic chemistry this year, and just maybe touch a smidge on organic stuff. Organic is a type of chemistry that you have to have a really good background in basic chemistry to understand. Fourth type of chemistry is what we call biochemistry, and this is the chemistry of living things. Obviously, you've all taken biology, which is the study of living things. And so in biochemistry, we're studying the chemical processes that occur within living things. All the digestive and enzymatic reactions that take place within our bodies would be a study of biochemistry. Photosynthesis and plant chemistry would fall into this category as well. And we won't touch too much on this year in biochemistry. It'll be during your research projects that you have one each semester, where if you have a topic that interests you in this area, you'll be able to study and tell us a little bit more about it. But any of you that have a notion of going into any sort of medical field, whether it be in becoming a doctor or a pharmacist or a nurse, you're going to study biochemistry along the way. And then the last type of chemistry we have up here is what's called physical chemistry. And then in physical chemistry, we're talking about energy changes that occur in reactions. Whenever you have a campfire during the summer and you're roasting your marshmallows, that would be a topic of physical chemistry, where we would measure the amount of energy, the amount of heat, the amount of light produced from a chemical reaction. And you will do quite a bit of physical chemistry in the labs this year, as well as in other certain calculations. So these are all 5 areas: analytical, inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, and physical chemistry. The basis.